I want to get back to KD's post-game comments, as you saw there. Steve Kerr saying the Warriors need to play with more anger. Durant basically saying, hey, I thought this team runs on joy, which is, of course, a reference to the whole Steph mentality. And Amin, I got to tell you, I made a joy and pain, sunshine and rain joke to our producers earlier, but since none of them were born when that song came out in 1980, I got nothing.
They didn't even know who Luke Perry was.
Help me out here. This is tough. Help me out here. Which emotion do the Warriors actually need to run on?
Well, they've been a joy team. First of all,
Rain.
Rob Bass would have been maybe they would have got the Rob Bass reference.
Nothing. I got nothing. I got crickets.
They're too young. But joy. They're definitely a joy team. But if you look at Kerr's quote, run it back and listen to it. If you take out the word anger, was there anything wrong with what he said there? Harder cuts, moving with purpose, playing with passion. Those are all things that we're accustomed to seeing from Golden State. I think the word anger was probably misplaced. He was probably angry, and that's why he said it. But it's not about being mad when you play. It's about playing with a purpose, and that's what they've done historically. When they go out there and they play with purpose. Their cuts are what we call live cuts. He's not just cutting just because, well, the players do, they're going to move this way.
Yeah.
He's cutting because there's a chance where we're going to break the play off and pass you the ball, and you can be in scoring position. When they don't do that, the offense is not as beautiful as it is.
I'll just remind everybody that last year, their last 17 games, I think they went 7-10.
Right.
They've lost 5 out of 8 here. They have looked as good, and there's been some injuries, but I think the biggest challenge Steve Kerr has is motivation, and he gets frustrated with it, and they were not motivated last night. I'm not going to freak out about it.
And then again, you get the tangible reward of the playoffs and moving on, and suddenly everyone's motivated.
The mopiness of Kevin Durant, can we just take a second there? The guy's trying to tee him up. Again, this is the funny thing. I talked to a lot of people.
You're talking about the Ron Adams part, right?
They're trying to tee him up on a softball question about a coach that he had an affinity with early in his career, and then he got to rejoin. It's just a Ron Adams question. But his mopiness is just like, dude, you're making it a story when it wouldn't otherwise be a story.
This is why he and Kyrie get along so well.
Yeah.
Because on these nights where they're just, so sad, they can commiserate together.
Well, I mean, look, I will say this about Kevin Durant. We've seen Kyrie's mood and frustrations affect not just him, but in some ways ripple through the whole team in Boston. KD has been upset for a lot of this season, and he has played phenomenal basketball. So clearly he's able to separate it, but he was upset again last night. Also on the podium, Boogie Cousins. Look, on a couple of occasions, the Celtics isolating Boogie on defense, scoring easy buckets on them. So is it fair to question Boogie in defense? I don't know. You look at the numbers with him on and off, they're very close. I understand all the clips, and yes, he's liable on those clips, but there's no team defense behind him.
Well, Saturday, Brett Brown, after the Warriors won in Philly, Brett Brown said we tried to put him into those isolation situations every single possible time. If we could have put him picking more, we put him picking more. The thing about it is, the Warriors were, for the last few years, the biggest margin of error team I've ever seen in my life. I've never seen a team in any sport that has big of a margin for error. When they play Boogie on defense and teams attack them like that, they have to play much more team defense, much more as a group, and their margin for error that they're used to having shrinks way down. When you have a guy like Boogie, it changes the entire way you play defense. It changes actually a lot of ways that you operate as an entire team, and they don't have those habits. And so this is where it's going to be interesting. To me, I really think at the end of the day, Boogie is going to be a matchup situation for them in the postseason. When there's another giant big out there like Steven Adams, like Jokic, potentially Nurkic, that's when he's going to be used. I don't think when they have their core lineups and they have to win the games, I think it's going to be the Hamptons 5. And I think they're trying to make it work with Boogie, but I don't think it's part of the spirit of the way they play.
The core of their belief is switchability, right? And beyond the fact that he's recovering from an injury and wasn't a great defensive player before that, there's some other issues because he's not a switchable guy. And this gives us an opportunity to go straight to once a video coordinator, always a video coordinator. We should have had Mike Brown on here because he's on the staff and he was a video coordinator. So here we go. They get the switch. Now you got Alfonso McKinney trying to go out Horford, who's way too big for him. But it's not just that. It's this. When Tatum cuts, Cousins isn't quick enough to keep up with that cut. So it's not just, hey, mismatch mouse in the house. It's also the other part of the switch where Cousins struggles. That's not his fault. He's a big guy. He's not supposed to be able to do that kind of stuff. Here we go. We get another one where Baines is in the pick and pop, and Rozier gets a switch, and That switch is not quite as clean and not quite as clear. And Cousins, again, it's not fair to ask a guy that big coming off an Achilles tear to keep up with a small guard like that. But part of that also in that last one was the communication, right? It's a guy who's not used to playing the style of defense. Because I was talking about this with Rick Mahorn yesterday, actually. Up until the Warriors, most of the NBA, we'd only switch in specific times. Short clock. Short clock will switch everything. Or there's a matchup that we want to get them a certain defender onto a certain guy. We'll switch anytime they're trying to screen that. The Warriors were really the first team to say, we're going to switch every single possession. Right. Because we have high IQ guys. Because we have 5. Yeah, we have long, athletic guys. You know, and so that kind of changed the dynamic around the league, but it's funny to see them now have to be more traditional in their defense.
Well, and also, by the way, you say they're not used to having to back someone up on defense to the extent they have to back up Boogie, and I see that when he's on there. But that being said, they need the offense that he can bring in a lot of these situations. Andre Iguodala does not score the way he used to score. Some of the other guys, they don't have the depth on the bench anymore that they used to have. Yes, Boogie was sort of like, hey, let's take a flyer, let's see how it works. But if he is going offensively the way, I mean, he had 2, 3 20-point games in a row in this last stretch. Like, they need that. They need some of that, too.
Like Brian said,
Steph, Clay,
he's probably going to be a situational guy.
Yeah. I just think it's a bargain they're going to have to make as this team continues to evolve.